Today's topic is Greeco-Roman period, and this period begins with 9th century BC and ends in 5th century AD. This ancient Greek is divided into three periods: Archaic period, Classical period, and Hellenistic period. This Archaic period is the dark age of the ancient Greece, and it is characterized by ignorance, injustice, and various kinds of miseries. And the next period is Classical period, and in this period witnessed the flowering of arts and letters. And the next period is Hellenistic period, and it is a period when Greece politically declined but culturally dominated. And we can look into Archaic period. This Archaic period, that is from 9th century BC to 5th century BC, and during this time city states were formed, and these city states ruled by tyrants were constantly at war with one another, even though Persians were their common enemy. Then, in this period, we have the poets Homer, Hesiod, and Sappho. Now, we can look into Homer. He lived in 8th century BC, and he is one of the greatest of epic poets. But unfortunately, nothing definite known about his life. So many lives of Homer have been written from the ancient period onwards, but there is nothing definite known about his life. Okay, and he is believed to have been a blind and a wandering minstrel, and his most important works are Iliad and Odyssey. Both these works are epics, and the Iliad is one of the oldest extant work in Western literature, and it set against the Trojan War, and it deals with the fighting between Agamemnon and Achilles. And Odyssey is the sequel to Iliad, and it depicts the journey of Odysseus or Ulysses back home to Ithaca after the fall of Troy. Then we can look into the Classical period. This Classical period, the Archaic period, was from 9th century BC to 5th century BC, and now the Classical period is from 5th century BC to 4th century BC. And I already told you, in the Archaic period they formed city states, and in the Classical period one of that city states, that is Athens, this Athens emerged as the most powerful of the Greek city state, and this Athens was ruled by the famous ruler Pericles. And during this period there was a tremendous flowering of arts and letters, and they write about the disciplines such as political thoughts, aesthetics, physics, ethics, linguistics, biology, logic, and mathematics, etc. Then happened the rise of philosophy. Okay, and we know that the famous philosophers are Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. But there is a classification like pre-Socratic philosophers. Understand that this is pre-Socratic, that is the philosophers before Socrates, and they were before or during the 6th century. And here is the names of 6 philosophers, and you don't need to study all these names, just understand there is a category like pre-Socratic philosophers, and just read the names, and when you get some questions you can connect these points with that. Okay, then classical drama, and this classical drama is categorized into two sets, that is tragedy and comedy. The first one is tragedy, and this tragedy emerged in Athens in the late 6th century BC, and it emerged as a part of religious festival, that is Dionysia, in honor of the god Dionysius. Okay, this Dionysius is a god of wine and ecstasy, and he was known as Bacchus among Romans. Then the next category is comedy, and in comedy that developed later in association with satire play, and this is usually based on mythological subjects. Then we can look into the structure of Greek theatre. Here is 6 points like koilon, orchestra, thymele, skein, proscenium, and diazoma. All these are the parts of Greek theatres, and you can Google search the image of this Greek theatre, then only you can understand what I'm saying. Okay, the first one is koilon. Koilon is otherwise known as theatron, and this koilon or theatron is the seats for the audience were arranged like a horseshoe. Okay, that is, the koilon is the seats that are arranged in the shape of horseshoe. Then orchestra is the circular part at the ground level just before the koilon. Then thymele is an altar, and it is in the center of this orchestra, and from which the sacrifice for Dionysius took place. And scene or skein, that is a building on the side of the orchestra that had backdrop with doors for the entrance and exit. Then proscenium is the level area in front of the skein for the action of play. That is, in the proscenium where the drama took place. And then comes the diazoma. Diazoma is the passage dividing the seats, dividing the seating tiers or the seats. Okay. Then structure of Greek tragedy. Greek tragedy can be divided into 4 structures. Okay, 4 parts: prologue, parados, episode or stasimon, then exodus. This prologue is the introductory part of the tragedy, and it gives a background information to the play. Then parados is where the chorus enters, chanting an ode, and gives more background information of the story. Then came episode or stasimon. Episode is the action. Okay, episode means the action is contained in 5 episodes in a tragedy, and the choral odes are called stasima, and that's why this session is otherwise known as stasimon. Okay, then exodus is the concluding scene, and it includes the intervene of actions. Okay, then the tragedians. There are 3 tragedians in that period. Those are Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. And in the beginning, there was only one actor in a tragedy, and this one actor is interacting with the chorus. That was the tragedy, or that was the drama at that time. And Aeschylus introduced the concept of second actor. Okay, he introduced the second actor, and thus brought a variety into the drama. And by the introduction of the second actor, the chorus has less importance, and in the beginning stage, the chorus was very important, and when Aeschylus introduced the second actor, there they have a less importance in the drama. Okay, and this Aeschylus made the costumes more elaborate. And the next one is Sophocles, and he introduced the third actor. And there was only three actors in Greek tragedy. Okay, that is the Aeschylus introduced the second actor and Sophocles introduced the third actor. Now we can look into Aeschylus. He was born in 525 BC and died in 456 BC, and he is known as the father of tragedy. And he participated in the competitions held at Dionysia, and he always won the first prize. And he believed to have been written about 70 to 90 plays, but only few survived. Okay, and his plays had strong moral and religious basis, and his most important trilogy is Oresteia, and his another important work is Persians, and this Prometheus Bound is also attributed to him. Now we can look into Oresteia in detail. Oresteia is a trilogy, and it has three dramas: Agamemnon, Libation Bearers, and Eumenides. In the story of Agamemnon, it is the story of a Greek hero named Agamemnon who was killed by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus. And this Clytemnestra is the twin sister of Helen of Troy. And you know the birth story of Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra, right? Okay, this Helen and Clytemnestra were born from the double egg laid by the swan Leda. The swan was raped by Zeus. So the father of this Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra were Zeus. Okay, and the next drama, Libation Bearers, has the story that this Agamemnon's children, Orestes and Electra, they decided to take revenge upon their father's death. And this Orestes kills Clytemnestra, his mother. That is, a matricide happened there. And in Eumenides, this Orestes is haunted by Eumenides or Furies as a punishment for committing matricide. Then Sophocles. Sophocles is also won prizes in the dramatic competitions, and he believed to have been written about 100 plays and more. In the beginning, his plays were like an imitation of Aeschylus's work. Okay, then he developed his own style, and when he developed his own style, his characters are more developed and individualistic than those of Aeschylus. And the Sophocles is famous for Theban trilogy. It includes the stories like it includes the dramas like Oedipus Tyrannus, Oedipus et Colonus, and Antigone. Actually, this Antigone is the first written work, and Oedipus et Colonus is the last written work. But the most important of this trilogy is Oedipus Tyrannus, that is in Latin. In Latin it is Oedipus Rex. Actually, this is the story of Oedipus, who was born to Laius and Jocasta. This Laius and Jocasta was the real father and mother of Oedipus, but unfortunately he was raised by Polybus and Merope, because there was a prophecy like this: Oedipus will kill his father and marry his mother. Because of this threat, Laius and Jocasta gave their baby to a shepherd to kill that baby. That is infanticide. Okay, but this shepherd give this baby to the couple from Corinth, like Polybus and Merope. And eventually, this Oedipus comes to know about the prophecy. And because of the fear of killing his father and marrying his mother, he went away from there. And on his way, he quarreled with a man and kills him without knowing that that is Laius, that is the original father of this Oedipus. And after that, by solving a riddle of Sphinx, this Oedipus becomes king of Thebes, and he marries the widowed queen Jocasta, and they had 4 children now. Okay, and these 4 children are Eteocles, Polynices, Antigone, and Ismene. And finally, when the truth revealed by another prophecy, this Jocasta kills herself, or she committed suicide, and this Oedipus blinds himself. And the next story, Oedipus at Colonus, the story describes the death of Oedipus. Then the next one is Antigone. Actually, this Antigone was the first written work. And in this story, after the death of Oedipus, his sons, that is Eteocles and Polynices, were in fight for the crown. And thus, during the fight, Eteocles and Polynices both died, and Creon became king. And this Creon denied the burial of Polynices. He buried Eteocles, but he denied the burial of Polynices. But Antigone decided to bury his brother. So this story of Antigone is the burial of her brother and the after effects. Okay. Then the next writer is Euripides. Euripides is one of the most important writer of that period, and he is famous for depicting the mythical heroes as ordinary people with inner lives and motives. And he wrote about 90 plays, and in his intellectual daring, he is often compared to Socrates. And his most important work is Medea. Medea is the name of the protagonist of the story. She is a lady, and the story deals with Medea's revenge on her husband Jason, who has left her for another woman. And Medea kills her husband's bride Glauce as well as father, that is King Creon also. And to torment Jason further, she kills her own sons. So these are the most important writers and works of that period. And we have other writers like Aristophanes, Menander, and Pindar. This Aristophanes is known for old comedy, and he wrote the plays like The Clouds, The Wasp, Lysistrata, and Frogs. Then Menander. Menander is associated with new comedy, and his plays has more generalized situations and stock characters, and this Menander's new comedy eventually developed into comedy of manners. Then the next writer is Pindar. You must have heard about this Pindaric odes, right? So the Pindar lived at the beginning of the classical period, and he wrote encomiastic odes. And the language of these odes were bold and formal, and there are 3 types of stanzas in each ode, like strophe, antistrophe, and epode. And the most famous or the major group of Pindaric odds. Pindar's odds are victory odds. These odds deals with the achievements of the participants in competitions such as Olympic Games. Okay, and a variation of Pindaric ode is called irregular ode, and it was developed by Abraham Cowley in the 17th century.